The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a silver ocean under the artificial suns that lit the massive space station. Ambassador Kilho walked slowly across the polished floor, his black shoes making soft sounds that echoed in the quiet air. He wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic service, looking small and plain next to the strange and colorful aliens that filled the curved seats around him. High above, Council Prime Veltar sat on a throne made of living crystal that changed colors as he moved. His body looked like a walking diamond, tall and sharp, with light dancing inside him like trapped stars. Around the hall, hundreds of other beings watched with eyes of every shape and color. Some had fur, some had scales. Some were just clouds of gas held together by metal frames. All of them were older than humanity, wiser than humanity, and more powerful than humanity. Or so they thought. Veltar's voice rang out like music played on crystal bells. The emergency session will begin. Today we discuss a matter that has never come before this council in all our long history. We must decide whether to formally warn a member species against attacking another world. The hall filled with whispers and strange sounds as the aliens talked among themselves. Some clicked, some buzzed, some made noises like singing water. Kilho stood quietly in the center of it all, his hands folded behind his back, his face showing nothing. At the far end of the hall, General Tekmor rose from his seat. He was huge, even sitting down, with a body like a giant insect covered in black armor. His forearms ended in claws that could cut through steel, and his mouth was full of teeth like broken glass. When he spoke, his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. The mighty Korthak Empire does not need warnings from anyone, Tekmor said, his compound eyes shining with anger. We have conquered 700 worlds. We have turned entire star systems into ash. These humans are nothing. They have not even left their own solar system properly. They are weak mammals who still fight with metal and fire. Elder Counselor Nimra stood up slowly. She was old, older than any other being in the hall, with skin like white paper and eyes like deep pools of black water. Her people had been watching the galaxy since before most of the other species had learned to use tools. When she spoke, everyone listened. General Tekmor, she said in a voice like wind through ancient trees. We have watched the humans for 300 years. We have seen them grow from primitive hunters to builders of cities, to travelers between worlds. They are not like other species. They are different. Tekmor's mandibles clicked with laughter. Different? They bleed red blood. They breathe oxygen. They die when you shoot them. How are they different? Nimra's ancient eyes looked directly at the Korthak general. They adapt. Every challenge makes them stronger. Every enemy teaches them new ways to fight. Every loss makes them more dangerous. We have seen species like yours try to conquer them before. None succeeded. Lies, Tekmor spat. The humans have never faced the full might of a galactic empire. They play with toys in their little solar system while real power shaped the galaxy. In the diplomatic section, Dr. So-Young shifted in her seat. She was Earth's chief scientist for alien studies, a small woman with sharp eyes and silver hair pulled back in a simple bun. She had spent her whole life studying the species that filled this hall, learning their languages, understanding their cultures. She knew things about them that they did not know about themselves. General Bae-hyun sat beside her, his old soldier's face hard as stone. He had fought in Earth's last great war, back when humans still killed each other instead of working together. His uniform had no decorations, but everyone who knew him understood that he was one of the most dangerous humans alive. He watched the aliens argue and said nothing. Veltar's crystal body flashed bright blue as he called for order. The question before us is simple. The Korthak Empire has announced their intention to invade and conquer the human homeworld. This council has never before felt the need to warn an aggressor species against attacking a target, but these are unusual circumstances. A new voice joined the debate. Ambassador Zilkaran of the hegemony floated near the ceiling, his gas-filled body held together by a metal frame that sparkled with lights. His people were traders and information brokers who knew the value of everything and everyone in the galaxy. The humans have resources, Zilkaran said in a voice like steam escaping from a pipe. Their world is rich in rare metals. Their population is large and could provide workers. Their location is strategic for controlling that sector of space. I understand why the Korthak want to take it. Then you understand why we will succeed, Thekmor replied. Their world will burn. Their cities will fall. Their people will serve the Empire or die. Dr. So-Young leaned forward and whispered to Bae-hyun. Should we tell them about the defense grid? The general shook his head slightly. They wouldn't believe us, and even if they did, it would change nothing. The Korthak only understand strength. They will have to learn the hard way. Another alien spoke up from the lower levels of the hall. Captain Vorthik of the Trade Alliance was a reptilian creature with green scales and yellow eyes that moved, independently of each other. His species had been peaceful merchants for thousands of years, selling goods and information across the galaxy. Perhaps we should examine the human military capabilities more closely, Vorthak suggested. Their technology appears primitive, but appearances can deceive. Thekmor's laughter filled the hall like the sound of breaking bones. Their most powerful weapons are fusion bombs. Their fastest ships take months to travel between planets. Their soldiers wear metal armor and carry projectile weapons. We have fought species with similar technology. They all fell within days. Nimra stood again, her ancient presence commanding attention. General, with respect, you have not studied the humans carefully enough. Yes, their visible technology seems primitive, but they are builders and learners unlike any species we have encountered. They take the tools of their enemies and make them better. They face impossible odds and find ways to win. Stories and legends, Thekmor dismissed. The Korthak Empire deals in facts. The fact is that they are a young species on a single world, with limited resources and outdated weapons. The fact is that our fleet will arrive in their system in 6 months. The fact is that their planet will surrender or burn. Veltar's crystal form pulsed with frustrated light. This council has seen the rise and fall of many civilizations. We have learned to recognize the signs of species that should not be provoked. The humans show all these signs. They are problem solvers. They are survivors. They do not give up. Then they will die bravely, Thekmor replied. It makes no difference to the Empire. Ambassador Kilho finally spoke for the first time since entering the hall. His voice was quiet, but it carried clearly through the vast space. The Earth government thanks the Council for its concern. However, we will not ask you to intervene. On our behalf. If the Korthak Empire wishes to attack our world, that is their choice to make. The hall fell silent. Even the constant background hum of life support systems seemed to pause. Hundreds of alien eyes focused on the small human standing, calmly in the center of the great chamber. Thekmor's mandibles spread wide in what might have been a smile. At least one of them has sense. They accept their fate. But Nimra heard something different in Kilho's words, something that made her ancient blood run cold. She had heard that tone before, long ago, from species that seemed weak, but were anything but. It was the voice of someone who knew secrets that others did not. Ambassador Kilho, she said carefully, are you certain your people understand what they face? Kilho turned to look at her with eyes that seemed much older than his young face. Elder Counselor, we understand perfectly. We have been preparing for this day since we first looked up at the stars. The session ended with no formal warning issued. The Korthak Empire would proceed with their invasion plans. The Council had done what it could. As the Great Hall emptied, aliens departed to their ships and their homeworlds, most believing they had just witnessed the last free moments of the human species. But a few, the oldest and wisest, felt something else. They felt fear. Not for the humans, but for what was about to happen to the galaxy. They had seen Kilho's eyes, heard the certainty in his voice, noticed the way the human general had remained silent throughout the entire debate. As the lights dimmed in the empty hall, Nimra spoke to herself in her ancient language. She said a prayer for the Korthak Empire because she knew they would need it. 6 months after the council meeting, space around Earth suddenly filled with ships. They appeared like deadly flowers blooming in the darkness, their hulls black as night and covered with weapons that could crack planets in half. 2,000 Korthak warships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, their engines burning bright red against the stars. Admiral Thekmor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bone Crusher, watching Earth grow larger on his viewing screen. The blue and white planet looked peaceful and beautiful, spinning slowly in the warm light of its yellow star. Cities sparkled on the night side like scattered diamonds. Orbital stations drifted around it like tiny moons. It looked exactly like every other world the Korthak Empire had conquered. "Begin standard invasion protocol," Thekmor ordered his crew. His voice echoed through the massive bridge where hundreds of Korthak warriors worked at their control stations. "Disable their communications. Destroy their military installations. Demand immediate surrender." The weapons officer, a scarred veteran named Graksul, turned from his console. "Admiral, we are detecting unusual movement in the system. The human vessels are not running away." Thekmor's compound eyes focused on the tactical display. Throughout the solar system, human ships were indeed moving, but not in the panicked flight he expected. Cargo haulers changed course toward the invasion fleet. Mining ships activated engines that should not have been so powerful. Even civilian transports turned to face the approaching armada. "Curious," the admiral muttered. "Perhaps they are too primitive to understand the danger." On the bridge of the cargo ship Soul's Pride, Captain Dal Su looked out at the approaching alien fleet through reinforced windows. His ship was old and battered, designed to carry supplies between Earth and the asteroid mines. The crew around him were miners and dock workers, not soldiers. But every one of them knew exactly what to do. "Remember what they taught us in school?" Dalsu said quietly into his communication system. "Today every ship is a warship. Today every citizen is a defender." His fingers moved over controls that had been hidden behind false panels for years. The Soul's Pride began to change. Cargo bay doors opened to reveal massive rail guns. Engine compartments shifted to expose military-grade thruster systems. The hull itself, reconfigured as armor plating, slid into new positions. Throughout the solar system, the same transformation was happening to hundreds of ships. Vessels that had looked like simple freighters revealed themselves as disguised battleships. Mining equipment turned into weapons of war. Construction mechs that built space stations began moving toward the enemy with tools that could cut through the strongest armor. On Earth, President Namjin sat in his office deep beneath the planet's surface. The room was simple and clean, with walls covered by screens showing every part of the solar system. His advisors surrounded him, but he already knew what needed to be done. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. "Citizens of Earth," he said into the cameras that would broadcast his words across the planet and to every human settlement in space. "Today we face an enemy that believes we are weak. Today we show them what humans build when we build for war." As his words spread across Earth, factories that had been making cars and computers suddenly changed their production lines. Assembly robots that built civilian vehicles began creating tanks and fighters. Shipyards launched vessels that had been disguised as cargo ships, but were actually the most advanced warships humanity had ever built. The Korthak fleet advanced toward Earth in perfect formation, their captains confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had conquered hundreds of worlds using the same tactics: appear in massive force, destroy any resistance, demand surrender, then begin the occupation. It had never failed. But as they entered the inner solar system, strange things began to happen. Human ships moved in patterns that should have been impossible without a central command system. Civilian vessels coordinated their attacks with military precision. Ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting even after taking hits that would cripple normal spacecraft. Commander Griktor, leading a squadron of Korthak destroyers, watched in confusion as a human mining ship rammed directly into one of his cruisers. The mining ship was torn apart by the impact, but somehow its cargo had been converted into explosives that ripped through the cruiser's hull like paper. "How did they know exactly where to hit us?" he demanded of his tactical officer. The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Yun-ji, working in a laboratory buried 3 kilometers beneath Seoul, smiled as her computer screens showed the results of decades of careful planning. Every piece of Korthak technology that had ever entered the solar system had been studied, analyzed, and reverse-engineered. Every alien probe, every piece of space debris, every captured transmission had taught humanity something new about their potential enemies. "Upload the tactical data," she ordered her team. "Let every ship know exactly where the Korthak armor is weakest." Across space, human vessels began targeting specific points on enemy ships with impossible accuracy. Weapons that should have bounced harmlessly off Korthak armor found the tiny gaps between plates. Missiles struck exactly where ship systems were most vulnerable. The alien invaders found themselves fighting an enemy that knew their technology better than they did. Admiral Thekmore watched his tactical display with growing alarm. Red symbols representing destroyed Korthak ships were spreading across the screen like a disease. His overwhelming numerical advantage was disappearing ship by ship as human forces that should have been helpless tore through his fleet with surgical precision. "This is impossible," he snarled. "They are primitives. They should be cowering and begging for mercy." His communications officer looked up from her station with fear in her compound eyes. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet." On the main screen, the image of a human appeared. Commander Taiwan wore the simple gray uniform of Earth's Space Forces, but his eyes held the confidence of someone who knew he was winning. Behind him, the bridge of his ship hummed with activity as crew members worked at stations filled with technology that looked far more advanced than anything the Korthak had expected. "Admiral Thekmore," Taiwan said in perfect Korthak language. "I am Commander Taiwan of the Earth Defense Corps. We offer you one opportunity to withdraw from our system peacefully." Thekmore's mandibles clicked with rage. "You dare threaten the Korthak Empire? We have destroyed civilizations that spanned entire star clusters. And we," Taiwan replied calmly, "have built a civilization that learns from every enemy it faces. You came here expecting to find prey. You found predators instead." As if to prove his point, human ships throughout the system began demonstrating capabilities that defied everything the Korthak thought they knew about human technology. Vessels phase-shifted through solid matter to attack from impossible angles. Weapons fired concentrated gravity beams that crushed enemy ships into compact balls of twisted metal. Most terrifying of all, destroyed human ships began rebuilding themselves using swarms of tiny machines that converted space debris into new weapons and armor. On the observation deck of his flagship, Thekmore watched a human destroyer that his ships had blown apart somehow pull itself back together and return to battle. The wreckage literally flowed like liquid metal, reshaping itself into a new configuration that was even more dangerous than before. "How?" he whispered to himself. "How is this possible?" The answer was simple, though the Korthak would never understand it. Humanity had faced extinction before. Wars, plagues, natural disasters, and near misses with asteroids had taught them that survival meant being ready for anything. When they finally reached space and learned they were not alone in the universe, they had prepared for the worst. Every human child learned in school that someday someone might try to take their world away. Every factory was designed to switch from peaceful production to military manufacturing at a moment's notice. Every civilian ship was built with hidden capabilities. Every citizen knew their role in defending humanity's future. As the battle raged through the solar system, emergency sessions began at the Galactic Council. Representatives who had watched the Korthak Empire conquer world after world were receiving reports that seemed impossible. The invasion fleet that should have overwhelmed Earth in hours was being systematically destroyed. Ambassador Kilho received constant communications from council members begging him to convince Earth to show mercy to the surviving Korthak forces. But his response was always the same. "We did not start this war," he told them. "We will not be the ones to decide how it ends." Back in the solar system, the last Korthak ships were desperately trying to escape. But human vessels had surrounded them, cutting off every route to hyperspace. The hunters had become the hunted, and there was nowhere left to run. Admiral Thekmore sat in his command chair, watching his proud fleet burn in the darkness. Around him, his crew worked frantically at damaged controls, trying to find some way to retreat with honor. But the humans had anticipated every move, blocked every escape route, countered every desperate strategy. For the first time in his long military career, the great Korthak admiral understood what true fear felt like. Admiral Thekmore's remaining ships floated dead in space around Earth like broken toys, scattered by an angry child. Half his fleet was gone, destroyed by enemies he had expected to crush in hours. But the Korthak Empire had not conquered 700 worlds by giving up easily. If these humans wanted a real war, he would give them one. "Prepare the viral bombs," he ordered through gritted teeth. His bridge crew looked at him with surprise and fear. Viral weapons were forbidden by every galactic treaty, banned even by the Korthak Empire's own brutal code of war. They were designed to kill every living thing on a planet's surface, leaving only empty cities and silent graves. Admiral, his weapons officer Graxul said carefully, "The viral weapons are reserved for absolute emergencies. High Command must approve their use." Thekmor's compound eyes blazed with fury. "I am High Command in this system. These mammals have humiliated the Empire. They will pay with their lives, all of their lives." Deep in the ship's weapons bay, Korthak technicians reluctantly prepared the most terrible weapons in their arsenal. 12 black cylinders, each one containing engineered viruses that could kill billions. The bombs were loaded into specially shielded launchers and aimed at Earth's major population centers. But high above the planet, in a space station that looked like a simple research facility, Dr. Yunji was already 3 steps ahead of them. Her laboratory was filled with computers and machines that most humans had never seen, technology that officially did not exist. She had been waiting for this moment for 20 years. "They're going biological," she announced to her team as alien. Energy signatures appeared on her sensors. "Upload countermeasure package 7. Release the atmospheric defenders." Around Earth's orbit, satellites that had appeared to be weather monitoring stations suddenly came alive. Cargo bays opened to release clouds of microscopic machines, each one smaller than a grain of sand but programmed with one simple mission: find alien biological weapons and destroy them before they could reach the surface. The Korthak viral bombs screamed down through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars, their deadly cargo ready to exterminate humanity. But as they descended, they passed through invisible clouds of Earth's defensive swarms. The tiny machines swarmed over each bomb, analyzing its contents, then releasing specially designed antibodies that neutralized the alien viruses before they could deploy. Dr. Yunji watched the results on her screens with satisfaction. Biological attack neutralized. All population centers safe. What the Korthak did not know was that humanity had been studying their technology for much longer than anyone suspected. Every probe that had ever entered the solar system, every piece of space debris from ancient battles, every captured signal had been carefully examined and reverse-engineered. Earth's scientists knew Korthak weapons better than the Korthak themselves. Admiral Thekmor stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His viral weapons had simply vanished, their deadly cargo somehow neutralized before it could take effect. The impossible was becoming routine when fighting these humans. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving another transmission from the human fleet." Commander Taiwan appeared on screen again, but this time he was not alone. Behind him stood other humans wearing uniforms that Thekmor had never seen before. Their faces were calm, but their eyes held a coldness that made the Korthak admiral's skin crawl. "Admiral," Taiwan said, "you have just attempted to commit genocide against our species. We consider this an escalation beyond conventional warfare. Our response will be proportional." The screen went dark, leaving Thekmor to wonder what the human meant by proportional response. He did not have to wait long to find out. Human ships throughout the solar system began to change. Hull plates shifted and reconfigured. Weapon systems emerged from hidden compartments. Most disturbing of all, the ships themselves began to grow larger as construction swarms built new sections in real time. Captain Wanbin commanded one of Earth's hidden dreadnoughts, a ship that had been disguised as an asteroid mining station for the past 15 years. As his vessel revealed its true nature, weapons that violated several laws of physics powered up along its hull. "Deploy the gravity lance," he ordered his crew. "Let's show them what happens when you threaten our children." The weapon that emerged from Wanbin's ship was like nothing the Korthak had ever encountered. It fired concentrated gravitational fields that could crush matter at the subatomic level. When the beam struck a Korthak cruiser, the entire vessel simply collapsed into a sphere of super-dense material no larger than a basketball. Throughout the battle zone, human weapons began demonstrating capabilities that should not have existed. Phase-shift cannons fired projectiles that passed through normal matter until they reached their targets, then became solid at the moment of impact. Reality anchors prevented enemy ships from using faster-than-light drives to escape. Most terrifying of all, some human vessels began reproducing themselves, using advanced nanotechnology to convert space debris and disabled alien ships into new weapons platforms. Colonel Hayuk led a boarding party of enhanced human marines onto a crippled Korthak destroyer. His team no longer looked entirely human. They had been modified to survive in any environment, their bodies enhanced with technology that allowed them to fight in vacuum, resist radiation, and process information at computer speeds. The Korthak crew that met them in the ship's corridors had never faced anything like these altered humans. Hayuk and his team moved with inhuman speed and precision, their enhanced reflexes making them nearly impossible to target. When Korthak weapons did hit them, their modified bodies simply absorbed the energy and kept fighting. Surrender and you will be treated according to galactic convention, Hayuk told the terrified aliens in perfect Korthak language. Continue fighting and we will demonstrate why Earth is classified as a death world. Meanwhile, at the Galactic Council Station emergency, sessions were being held around the clock. Representatives from across the galaxy watched the battle around Earth with growing alarm. The reports they were receiving seemed impossible, but the evidence was undeniable. Council Prime Veltar's crystal body pulsed with distressed colors as he addressed the assembly. The situation in the Sol system has escalated beyond all expectations. The human defensive capabilities far exceed our projections. Ambassador Zilkaran of the hegemony floated near the ceiling, his gas-filled body trembling with fear. They are using weapons that should not exist: gravity manipulation, matter conversion, reality anchoring. These technologies are beyond what any species should possess at their level of development. Elder Counselor Nimra sat silently in her seat, but her ancient eyes held no surprise. She had tried to warn them, but no one had listened. The humans were exactly what she had expected them to be. Survivors who learned from every challenge, who turned every attack into a lesson for future defense. "We must contact them," Veltar announced. "We must convince them to show restraint." But when they tried to reach Ambassador Kilho, his response was chilling in its simplicity. The Korthak Empire chose to escalate this conflict beyond conventional warfare. They attempted genocide against our species. We are responding appropriately. Back in the Sol system, Admiral Thekmor was discovering just what human restraint looked like. His ships were not being destroyed outright. Instead, they were being systematically disabled, their crews captured, their technology studied and reverse-engineered in real time. Dr. Jong Min, Earth's leading expert in alien psychology, worked with teams of scientists to examine every captured Korthak vessel. They studied the aliens' technology, learned their tactics, and most importantly, began to understand their culture and motivations. "They respect only strength," she reported to the Earth Defense Command. "Their entire society is built on the concept of dominance through force. They cannot understand cooperation or mutual benefit." General Bae Hyun, who had remained silent during most of the conflict, finally spoke. "Then we must teach them. But first we must make sure they never threaten another species the way they threatened us." The final phase of the battle began not with massive explosions or dramatic space battles, but with something much more subtle and terrifying. Human ships began approaching the remaining Korthak vessels with strange new weapons that did not destroy, but transformed. Conversion beams struck alien ships and began rewriting their basic structure at the molecular level. Korthak weapons became human weapons. Alien armor became stronger and lighter under human modification. Most disturbing of all, the ship's computer systems were completely rewritten with human software that was far more advanced than anything the Korthak had originally possessed. Admiral Thekmor watched in horror as his flagship's own weapons turned against his remaining fleet. The ship's computer spoke to him in his own language, but with a distinctly human accent. "Admiral Thekmor," the computer said politely, "you are now a prisoner of the Earth Defense Corps. Please instruct your crew to surrender peacefully. Resistance will be met with force, but cooperation will be rewarded with fair treatment according to galactic law." The great Korthak admiral, conqueror of 700 worlds, slumped in his command chair as the reality of his situation became clear. He had not just lost a battle. 3 days after the last Korthak ship fell silent in Earth's solar system, Admiral Sujin stood on the bridge of the newly revealed human flagship Eternal Soul. Around her, the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled, prepared to leave their home system for the first time as conquerors rather than explorers. The ships that surrounded her vessel looked nothing like the converted cargo haulers and mining equipment that had defeated Thekmor's invasion force. These were purpose-built warships that had been constructed in secret facilities hidden throughout the asteroid belt. Their hulls gleamed with armor that bent light around itself, making them nearly invisible against the stars. Fleet status report. Sujin ordered her tactical officer. Lieutenant Commander Dal Ho looked up from his console with barely contained excitement. All ships report ready for hyperspace jump. We have 200 frontline warships, 50 support vessels, and 100 stealth reconnaissance craft. Total crew complement is 47,000 personnel. Sujin nodded grimly. The numbers sounded impressive, but she knew they were about to face an empire that controlled hundreds of star systems and commanded millions of warriors. The difference was that humanity was no longer hiding its true capabilities. "Open a channel to all ships," she commanded. Throughout the fleet, screens flickered to life showing the Admiral's weathered face. Sujin had fought in humanity's last Great War, back when humans still battled each other over resources and territory. Now she would lead them against an alien empire that had made the mistake of threatening their home. "Citizens and soldiers of Earth," she began, "for 300 years, we have hidden our true strength from the galaxy. We have played the role of primitive mammals while we prepared for the day when someone would try to take our world from us. That day has come and gone. The Korthak Empire attacked our home, threatened our families, and attempted to commit genocide against our species." She paused, letting her words sink in to crews across the fleet. "Today, we stop hiding. Today, we remind the galaxy why Earth is called the birth world of nightmares. Today, we show them what happens when you hunt humans." The fleet jumped to hyperspace in perfect synchronization, leaving Earth's solar system as empty as it had been before the invasion. But hidden sensor networks and automated defense platforms remained, ready to protect humanity's home while their children went to war. The first target was a Korthak military base in the Xerion system, 3 days' travel from Earth. According to captured intelligence files, the base commanded a sector fleet of over 500 ships and served as a staging ground for further invasions into human space. But when the human fleet arrived, they found something unexpected. The Korthak base was already under attack by ships flying unfamiliar designs. As Sujin watched through her tactical display, alien vessels that clearly were not human systematically destroyed Korthak defense stations and captured supply depots. "Unknown vessels. This is Admiral Sujin of the Earth Defense Corps," she broadcast on all frequencies. "Identify yourselves." The response came from a ship that looked like it had been grown rather than built. Its organic curves and flowing lines completely unlike either human or Korthak technology. "Human Admiral, I am Captain Thel Avar of the Free Zelak Fleet. We are former slaves of the Korthak Empire. When we learned of your victory at Earth, we began our own revolution." Sujin felt a cold smile cross her face. The Korthak Empire was discovering that conquest through fear only worked as long as you remained feared. Once that fear was broken, every oppressed species became a potential enemy. "Captain Thelavar, we offer our assistance in liberating your people. But first, we need information about Korthak fleet positions and defensive capabilities. The alliance that formed in the ruins of the Xerion base would change the galaxy forever. The Zelak had been enslaved for 2 centuries, forced to build ships and weapons for their Korthak masters. But they had also been secretly modifying those ships, adding hidden systems and back doors that could be activated when the time was right. Colonel Hayuk led his enhanced Marines aboard captured Korthak vessels, working with freed Zelak engineers, to understand the Empire's technology from the inside. What they found was both encouraging and disturbing. The Korthak military was larger than Earth's intelligence estimates, but it was also more fragile than anyone had expected. Their entire command structure depends on absolute obedience, Hayuk reported to Admiral Sujin. "Take out the senior officers, and the regular soldiers don't know what to do. They've never had to think for themselves." Meanwhile, Dr. Jungmin worked with Zelak scientists to develop new weapons and tactics. The aliens had 300 years of experience as the Empire's unwilling servants, and they knew every weakness in Korthak technology and strategy. "They always attack in the same patterns," the lead Zelak engineer explained through translation. "Software. Same formations, same targeting priorities, same retreat procedures. They never adapt because adaptation requires thinking, and thinking requires questioning orders. The Human-Zelak alliance moved through Korthak space like a spreading infection. Each world they liberated provided new allies, new ships, and new intelligence about Empire operations. Species that had been conquered decades or centuries ago suddenly found themselves free and eager for revenge. On the Korthak homeworld of Grexmoor, Emperor Graktul received reports that seemed impossible. Entire sectors were falling to a combined force of humans and rebels. Fleets that had been invincible for centuries were being destroyed by enemies who fought with tactics and technology that defied every assumption about inferior species. "How many ships do the humans have?" he demanded of his intelligence chief. General Vecron's mandibles clicked nervously as he consulted his datapad. "Emperor, that is difficult to determine. Their vessels appear to be self-replicating. Each battle produces more human ships than they started with." The truth was even more disturbing than Vecron suspected. Human ships carried construction swarms that could convert any available matter into new vessels, weapons, or equipment. Every asteroid field became a potential shipyard. Every destroyed enemy vessel became raw material for the human war machine. Captain Wunbin commanded a human deep strike force that specialized in precision attacks on high-value targets. His ships could phase shift through solid matter, appearing inside enemy formations without warning. His crew had been enhanced like Hyuk's Marines, their bodies and minds modified to handle the stress of impossible maneuvers and split-second decisions. "Target the command ship," Wunbin ordered as his squadron materialized in the middle of a Korthak convoy. "Remember, we want the officers alive. They have information we need." The attack was over in minutes. Korthak escorts found themselves unable to target ships that could become intangible at will. Their command vessel was boarded and captured before they could send a distress signal. Most importantly, the convoy's cargo holds were full of intelligence data that revealed the locations of more slave worlds and military bases. Back on Earth, President Namjin addressed a planet that was transforming itself once again. Factories that had produced military equipment during the invasion were now building colony ships and exploration vessels. Humanity's war with the Korthak Empire was not just about revenge. It was about reshaping the galaxy into something better. "Citizens," he announced, "we are not conquering worlds. We are liberating them. Every species that joins our alliance does so as an equal partner. We offer them the choice that the Korthak never gave, the choice to determine their own future." The message was broadcast not just to Earth, but to every world in the growing alliance. Human communication technology, enhanced with captured alien improvements, could reach across interstellar distances in real time. For the first time in galactic history, oppressed species could coordinate their rebellions across multiple star systems simultaneously. Admiral Su Jin received regular reports from rebellion leaders across former Korthak territory. The pattern was always the same. Human forces would arrive to find local populations already in revolt, Korthak garrisons overwhelmed by their own former slaves, and infrastructure intact and ready to be converted to peaceful purposes. "The Empire is collapsing faster than we can advance," she reported to Earth Command. "Every victory creates 10 new allies. Every liberated world becomes a base for further operations." But the most significant change was happening to the humans themselves. Contact with dozens of alien species was advancing Earth's technology at an unprecedented rate. Medical techniques from the healing-focused Zelak, navigation systems from the nomadic Vorthani, weapons technology from the militaristic Grekhan, who had been forced to build Korthak ships for 50 years. Dr. Yunji, now working aboard a mobile research station that traveled with the fleet, coordinated the integration of hundreds of different technological systems. "We're not just winning a war," she told her team. "We're building the foundation for a completely new kind of civilization." The Korthak Empire that had existed for 1,000 years was dying, not through destruction, but through transformation. Each world that fell to the human alliance was offered a choice: join the new galactic community as a free partner, or try to maintain the old system of conquest and oppression alone. The throne room of Emperor Graktul had once been the center of an empire that spanned 1,000 worlds. Golden walls rose toward a crystal dome that showed the stars of conquered systems, each one a reminder of Korthak power and dominance. Now the room felt empty and cold, its grandeur meaningless in the face of an empire that no longer existed. Captain Wanbin walked slowly across the polished floor, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. Behind him came a small group of humans and aliens, representatives of the coalition of free worlds that had replaced the Korthak Empire in just 8 months of warfare. They wore no weapons and showed no signs of aggression, but their mere presence filled the room with quiet authority. Emperor Graktul sat slumped on his throne, his once magnificent armor now dented and scarred from the final battle for his homeworld. Around him, the last of his loyal guards stood at attention, but their compound eyes showed defeat rather than defiance. The great Korthak Empire had fallen not to superior force, but to an idea more powerful than any weapon. Emperor Graktul, Wanbin said in perfect Korthak language, "I am Captain Wanbin of the Earth Defense Corps, representing the Coalition of Free Worlds. We come to discuss terms for the peaceful transition of your remaining territories." The fallen emperor's mandibles clicked with bitter laughter. "Terms. You have destroyed my empire, turned my subjects against me, and shown the galaxy that the Korthak way of life is obsolete. What terms could there possibly be?" Wanbin's expression remained calm and respectful. "The same terms we have offered every other world, the chance to choose your own future." For a moment, the throne room fell, silent except for the distant sounds of celebration from the city outside. The people of Grexmoor, both Korthak and the dozen slave species that had served them, were greeting their liberation with joy that could be heard even through the palace's thick walls. Graktul looked down at the human captain with confusion and suspicion. "You could end my species. Your weapons could turn this world to ash. Your alliance could hunt down every Korthak in the galaxy. Why do you offer mercy to those who showed you none?" Wanbin gestured to the diverse group behind him, which included not just humans but representatives from 30 different species that had joined the coalition. Among them stood Captain Thelavar of the Zelak, whose people had been enslaved by the Korthak for 2 centuries, but now served as equal partners in the new galactic government. "Because that is not who we are," Wanbin replied. "We do not conquer. We liberate. We do not destroy. We build. The galaxy has room for every species to thrive, including yours." Dr. Su Jin, Earth's new ambassador for interspecies relations, stepped forward with a datapad containing the terms that had been negotiated over weeks of careful discussion. "Emperor, your people will undergo a transition period of 100 years. Your military technology will be converted to peaceful purposes. Your industrial capacity will be used to help rebuild the worlds your empire damaged. Your people will learn to coexist with others rather than dominate them." Graktul studied the document with growing amazement. These were not the terms of conquest, but of rehabilitation. The humans and their allies were offering the Korthak a chance to remain a spacefaring civilization, to maintain their cultural identity, and to eventually rejoin galactic society as equals rather than overlords. "And if we refuse?" the Emperor asked. Wanbin's voice remained gentle but carried an undertone of absolute certainty. "Then you will be alone in a galaxy that has moved beyond the need for empires. Your people will choose for themselves whether to follow your path of isolation or join the community of free worlds." As if summoned by his words, sounds from outside the palace grew louder. Korthak citizens were cheering alongside freed slaves, celebrating not just the end of war, but the beginning of something new. The Empire's rigid hierarchy was dissolving as ordinary Korthak discovered they had more in common with other species than they had ever been allowed to realize. General Bei Hyun, who had remained silent throughout the war's final months, finally spoke. "Your Majesty, we have studied your people carefully. You are not evil by nature. You were simply trapped in a system that rewarded aggression and punished cooperation. We offer you the chance to discover what the Korthak can become when they are free to choose." The Emperor looked around his empty throne room, then at the documents that offered his people a future he had never imagined possible. Slowly, he removed the crown that symbolized 1,000 years of Korthak dominance and set it aside. "I accept your terms," he said quietly, but I have one condition of my own. One Bin raised an eyebrow. Yes? I want to meet with the human leaders who planned this war. I want to understand how you defeated an empire without becoming one yourselves. 3 days later, a small transport ship arrived at the Galactic Council station, now transformed into the headquarters of the coalition of free worlds. The vessel carried Graktul and a small group of Korthak nobles who had chosen to participate in their species' rehabilitation rather than fight a hopeless resistance. Ambassador Kilho met them at the docking bay, the same human who had stood calmly in the council chambers months earlier while aliens debated humanity's fate. He looked exactly the same, but Graktul now understood that he was looking at one of the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. Former Emperor, Kilho said with a respectful bow. Welcome to the new galactic community. The council chambers had been completely redesigned. Instead of a single throne overlooking rows of subject seats, there was now a circular arrangement where every species sat as equals. Representatives from over 200 worlds filled the space, their discussions conducted in dozens of languages, but unified by translation technology that ensured everyone could participate. Council Prime Veltar, his crystal body now glowing, with peaceful blue light, addressed the assembly. Today we witness the final transformation of our galaxy from a collection of competing empires to a true community of free peoples. Ambassador Sujin stood to present the coalition's first major initiative, a galaxy-wide infrastructure project that would connect every inhabited world with faster-than-light communication networks, allowing real-time cooperation on scientific research, cultural exchange, and mutual defense. No species will face extinction alone, she announced. No world will struggle with problems that others have already solved. No people will be forced to choose between conquest and isolation. Elder Counselor Nimra, whose ancient wisdom had tried to warn the galaxy about humanity's true nature, spoke with satisfaction in her voice. We have learned why the human homeworld was classified as a Class Thouth death world, not because it creates killers, but because it creates protectors who refuse to let others suffer as they once did. Graktul watched the proceedings with wonder and growing understanding. The humans had not simply won a war, they had fundamentally changed what it meant to be a spacefaring civilization. Competition through cooperation rather than conquest, strength through diversity rather than dominance, growth through learning rather than taking. Dr. Yunji presented the coalition's scientific achievements, medical technologies that could heal injuries that had been considered permanent, terraforming techniques that could restore damaged worlds in decades rather than centuries, and most remarkably, communication methods that allowed different species to share not just words, but concepts and emotions. We are not just building a galactic government, she explained. We are creating a galactic family. After the session ended, Kilho walked with Graktul through the station's observation deck, where they could see ships from hundreds of worlds docked together in peaceful cooperation. Human vessels worked alongside Zelak bioships, Korthak industrial platforms, and dozens of other designs as the galaxy's new infrastructure took shape. How did you know? Graktul asked. How did you know that your way would work? Kilho smiled, the same expression he had worn in the council chambers when the Korthak invasion was first announced. Because we learned from our own history. Humans spent thousands of years fighting each other before we discovered that cooperation achieves more than conquest. We nearly destroyed ourselves learning that lesson. We decided the galaxy deserved to learn it the easier way. Years passed and the transformation continued. Korthak engineers, once builders of weapons, became architects of peaceful cities. Korthak warriors became explorers and peacekeepers. Most importantly, young Korthak grew up in a galaxy where they could choose their own paths rather than follow the rigid hierarchy of their ancestors. Emperor Graktul, now simply Citizen Graktul, worked as a historian documenting the fall of his empire and the rise of the coalition. His writings became required reading for students across the galaxy, a reminder of how quickly civilizations could change when given the opportunity. On Earth, a small museum was built to commemorate the war that had reshaped the galaxy. In its central hall, a simple plaque bore witness to humanity's philosophy. We did not ask for this fight. We did not want this power, but when evil came for the innocent, we answered, "We are human. We endure, we protect, we build tomorrow from the ashes of yesterday's fears. Visitors from across the galaxy came to read those words and understand the species that had given them freedom. They learned that humans were not perfect,